Hi, this is David Heide, and I'm here with Brad Belka to talk to you about our house, the historic E.L. Powers House, number 2 on the tour. The design team was Mark Nelson, Brad Belka, and myself. Since this is an important historic house in the history of architecture of Minneapolis, we thought it would be good to tell you a little bit about the house, why it's important historically, and also about the work we did there. We want to tell you about the sources of information that we've used in preparation of our presentation. The first one is the E.L. Powers House, A Building History, prepared by New History, a Minneapolis-based consulting firm dedicated to increasing the use and viability of existing and historic buildings and sites. They combine history, historic architecture, and project management for building reuse to revitalize the built environment. Our second main source is a wonderful book called At Home on the Prairie, The Houses of Purcell and Elmsley by Dixie Legler and photographed by Christian Korab. At the end of this video is a complete, detailed list of sources used, and if you have specific questions about any of these, feel free to call the studio and we'll be happy to help. Okay, to set the scene, it's 1910 and it was an age of optimism in America. An onrush of inventions, automobiles, electric lights, indoor plumbing, and new technology for the home all offered a sense of promise at the dawn of the 20th century. The Midwest, with its booming economy and progressive ideals, was the perfect stage for a new architecture to suit the times. Our story begins with Chicago architect Louis Sullivan, who is generally regarded as the father of modern architecture. A number of people worked for him over the years, including the famous Frank Lloyd Wright. Sullivan was an inspiring figure with an eye for talent. George Elmsley and William Gray Purcell, for a short period, both learned at his drawing board. Elmsley was there for nearly 2 decades. Elmsley's work in Sullivan's office involved much of the decorative arts, as seen in his work at the Minnesota Farmers and Merchants Bank in Owatonna, Minnesota. It's a great example of Elmsley's signature ornamentation. Years later, Elmsley wrote to Purcell, "Beginning in 1895 and until 1909, I did 99 3/5 of Sullivan's design work. When I left, some people wondered what had happened to Sullivan's ornament." The intricate cast iron filigree on Chicago's Carson Peary Scott store is an excellent example of this ornamentation. William Purcell was also at Sullivan's office for a short time. Then, after a year studying in Europe, Purcell returned to Minneapolis and opened his own firm. In 1909, as Sullivan's practice declined, Purcell was able to convince Elmsley to join him in Minneapolis. And just the next year, they had the commission for the E.L. Powers House, which we're going to talk about today. The pair worked in unison. Scottish-born Elmsley, the artist, churned out glorious ornament and complex architecture designs. The wealthy Purcell, an analyst with a talent for public relations, secured commissions and managed the office, all while developing designs of his own. While the designers found a kinship with the precepts of the arts and crafts movement and its focus on simplicity and the honest use of materials, these Prairie School architects were more captivated by new technology. They were also inspired by nature, as is represented in their use of materials and color. Their homes responded to the environment with a horizontal emphasis and open interiors that recalled the Midwestern prairie. Features such as deep eaves, low terrace walls, and bands of casement windows played with the distinction between indoors and outdoors, as is evidenced in this Frank Lloyd Wright house in Decatur, Illinois, which we had the privilege of restoring. Their all-encompassing designs included not only a building structure, but also its interior decor and exterior landscaping. At its core, the Prairie School was not restricted to a building's practical purpose, but also encompassed its spiritual effect. They believed in order to be organic, a building must also be honest. In other words, it must present its structure and use materials in a straightforward manner. all while meeting the needs of its occupants and displaying a sensitivity to its natural and human environment. In 1911, the E.L. Powers family moved into their new home. The details of their lives, Ernest and his wife Harriet, and their two children, Ralph and Helen, remain relatively unknown. They stayed in the house just 4 years. The initial budget of $15,000 to $19,000 was larger than typical for Purcell and Elmsley. Upon completion of the drawings, the cost exceeded this budget. The architects reimagined the house at 30% smaller, and a repricing resulted in only 4% savings. Ultimately, the house cost $17,500 to build in 1911. This was the first residential commission with Elmsley at the design helm, and it displays his direct influence with his design features that came to characterize the partnership. The 1913 edition of the Western Architect described the house's exterior composition as greenish-brown textured brick, brown woodwork, and a floated surface of buff plaster with a decidedly pink tone. These colors and materials were typically employed by the firm. It ranks among one of the most ornamented residences that Purcell and Elmsley designed. Their houses showcase ornamental motifs expressed in multiple mediums, including art glass, sawn wood, and stencils. For Purcell and Elmsley, ornamentation was not a secondary element of design, but rather an expression of the building's soul. The site is a special one, with its most interesting outlook toward the rear of the property, noted Purcell. His solution was to turn the house sideways on the narrow lot and reverse the typical floor plan by placing major living spaces to the rear with a view toward Lake of the Isles. Purcell considered this approach revolutionary. As he later explained, up to this time parlors were in the front of the house and kitchens in the rear. All was done, and that was that. Upon reflection, Elmsley told Purcell, "You were a bit adverse to showing the design because it was too unusual and not likely to suit. However, you sold it, and all were happy." Open floor plans made even small houses seem larger. Instead of cloistered parlors and other specialized rooms, living areas become spacious and multi-purpose, zoned for various activities: a writing table tucked into a corner, a cozy ingle nook with built-in benches next to the fireplace. Even a window seat to view nature gave each family member a quiet and beautiful corner in which to relax. Ornament was integral to the building, not on it, as Wright had so famously insisted. Elmsley called ornament the building's final and logical flowering. The fireplace was sacred in the hearts of Purcell and Elmsley. To underscore the hearth's importance, the architects often incorporated lavish decoration, intimate ingle nooks, even murals into the design. Evidenced here is a sumptuous terracotta example with flowing organic forms. "Oh, how our draftsmen enjoyed inking in these fresh new forms," Purcell recalled. "How hard they tried, without success, to imitate Mr. Elmsley's beautiful singing line." Considering the open plan of the house, this historic view shows the linear connection between the dining room, through the front entry hall, and the living room, terminating in the broad bay overlooking Lake of the Isles. A desire for more nighttime lighting in this striking bay led to a special solution that Brad's going to tell us about.
These two lighting standards, inspired by the architecture of the building, feature our interpretation of the house's design sensibilities. Made of the same vertical grain white oak as the interior, they are capped with Orion glass shades to match the historic sconces in the house. To make seating more comfortable, we designed a custom ottoman, again, details inspired by the original building. Concerned about how dark it was in the front entry, we spoke with the owners about various options to light the area. Drawing on the design of a beautiful light fixture at Purcell's own home, we have reproduced that piece and installed it in this location, perhaps bending the tenets of preservation but ensuring the livability of the house. This is a reproduction of Purcell and Elmsley's design, located in another one of their houses. The dining room is as exquisitely detailed as the rest of first floor. Decorative saw-cut panels ornament the buffet. Here we see Purcell's own drawing of the design. An interesting note here is that these two panels are installed one upright and the other upside down, a mystery of the house.
This is a great time to talk about the Northwest Architectural Archives at the University of Minnesota. It's a repository of architectural drawings and information of all sorts. It's also a great place to see all of Purcell and Elmsley's drawings and other papers regarding their work. The collection is profound and even contains this sample of the original wallpaper from the Powers house with a note on the back from the interior designer to Elmsley saying, "A souvenir for somebody who saves everything." The architects quickly discovered a problem in their clients' unseemly Victorian heirlooms. As Purcell lamented, the furniture was so inharmonious and out of step with the fresh, clean designs of our rooms. In response to that, the firm designed the dining room set specifically for the house. A very similar dining room set can be seen in the collection at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. This is not the actual set designed for the Powers house, but very similar. Throughout the house, the decorative arts are alive and well. They're celebrated and abound in every detail. Building on the inspiration of the house, the main portion of this project was a rethinking of the kitchen for today's living.
The pre-existing kitchen was problematic from a number of viewpoints. Circulation was compromised by a large island in the middle of a small space. Some of the appliances were undersized, and some of the work surfaces were too shallow to be effective. Aside from that, the materials and finishes were not aligned with the house in general. We were asked to design a new kitchen that addressed these issues and enhanced the lifestyle of our clients. The new kitchen features millwork and cabinetry made of red birch with a deep amber shellac finish. The rest of the main level features dark oak, but we chose a lighter wood for a couple reasons. First, the new kitchen needed to have a lighter feel. Second, there is extensive historic precedent for using a different wood species in the less public or servant spaces of the house. Circulation was improved by replacing the large island with a smaller work table that could be moved aside when necessary. The windows, once painted and nailed in place, have been restored to slip head functionality, meaning they slide up into the wall. Custom lanterns made of brass, wood, and glass provide task lighting at the sink area. The unlacquered brass used in the lighting, plumbing fixtures, and hardware will take on a darker patina over time, eventually matching the original brass elements in the rest of the house. Delicate wood filigree was a hallmark of Purcell and Elmsley's work. The cutout beneath the sink is reminiscent of common motifs found in many of their houses. The cabinet to the left of the sink conceals a dishwasher, while to the right is a rollout for trash and recycling. While there is no cabinetry above this line anywhere else, we broke with precedent to add more storage above the refrigerator. The tall cabinet at the end of the room houses a refrigerator on the right side and storage on the left. Continuous trim above the doors and windows is evident throughout the house. The range now resides where previously there was a cabinet too shallow to use effectively. Eliminating the island allowed us to place full-depth cabinetry and the range in this location. Tucked into the corner to the right of the range is a new access door to the original laundry chute. Here, the original sliding window remains in its dark finish, as does the original door to the dining room. Original items were left dark to distinguish old from new. This delineation is an important tenet of historic preservation. Cookbook storage resides beneath the window, while a china cabinet nestles into the corner by the entrance to the dining room. The design of the shelf brackets is borrowed from some of the original cabinetry. An accent downlight is recessed into the bottom of each. This original drawing from the archives showed the precedent we drew on for the design of the brackets. Open shelves adjacent to the sink provide a place for display. The original radiator remains in place, now enclosed in a cabinet with custom brass grills. An important feature of the room was expanding the continuous head casing to create shelving at the sink, as well as a suspended shelf that layers the space. When we work on a historic house, we strive to speak the language of the building, leaving our work sitting comfortably in its context. These principles drive our approach when working on historic renovations.